6:01, and I've called meeting to order.
Everybody needs to be great.
It's 6:01, and I'm gonna call the meeting to order. And we'll do a roll call. Looks like everyone's here except for Brian.
Brian's online.
He's on. Thank you.
Brian's online. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, he's online.
We'll
And-
do a roll call where Jacqueline will actually call the name.
Okay, go ahead.
Just 1 second. Okay, Brian, can you hear me? Okay, I show Brian is online. We'll work through the tweaks on that.
Hear me?
Hi, Brian.
Hey, okay, good. Looks like I can hear you now. For some reason, I keep getting dropped from the call.
Oh, no. Okay, we can hear you pretty good. Thank you. Carl,
Here.
Colton? Dawn?
Here.
Roger?
Here.
Susan? Tina? Here. And we have our group.
We have a quorum. Perfect.
Okay, is there any guest business? Doesn't look like it. Okay, action items. Okay, we're gonna elect the chair and.
Oh. Sorry, Colton raised his hand. He just came on in.
Oh, he did?
So we'll move him over from an attendee to a panelist, which will just take a moment.
And it looks like Marcus also has come in as the liaison. So I'm going to promote him as well.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, this is Colton. I'm in now.
Okay. Colton, are you able to hear us okay?
Yes, thank you.
Marcus, I see that you joined us as well. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
Great. Thank you very much. Sorry for the interruption.
All right, so it's time to elect a chair and a vice chair. Anyone want to sign up to be the chair or vice chair? Anyone? Or any names you want to throw out for anyone?
I'm willing to do it again.
Okay. I would suggest Brian to take one of the positions if he's interested. Carl, any?
I've just been there plenty of times,
I know you have.
so I'll pass the hat.
Don, are you interested?
Not at this point now.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is Brian. I'm happy to take one of the positions.
Okay, is there one that you prefer over the others so we can vote on it or?
No, whatever, I'm good with whichever one.
I
Okay,
make a motion to Brian.
I'll second it. And then I'll make a motion for Tina to be vice.
I'll second. So I believe that the correct language for voting in a chair and a vice chair, we nominate a chair and it'll be first and seconded, and then the vice chair's nominated first and seconded, and then the full motion is to motion for the approval of that chair and vice chair as a single motion, and then that's what gets voted.
Okay, well, I thought we just did Brian. And we got a second from Carl, and then I said Tina and Dawn second.
Okay.
Okay, so any objection to that? Okay. We don't need to take a vote on it. We just,
You do, you have to use the full sentence that you make a note, a motion to do those orders, and then you have to open it up for the vote.
all right, you said do what now? motion to take a
Um,
vote?
Yes, so Roger, you're motioning for Brian to be chair
Right?
and for
Seconded by
Tina to be
Carl.
vice chair.
Seconded by-
So that's your motion.
Okay.
And then somebody has to not have approval that you want it to continue into the vote.
I second
Second it, okay.
these motions.
And then we say all that's in favor
All that's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
and any opposed?
Any opposed?
No.
All right, motion carries.
Okay.
Perfect. So at this point, Brian, you are chair for the rest of the meeting.
Okay, shoot, I'm driving right now, so this might be difficult for me.
Can I make a suggestion? If Brian's willing, let Tina run it, this meeting, and then Brian
I'll
sit.
make a motion to, yeah, let Tina run the meeting, today. As the vice chair.
Have to vote on that.
I'm just discussing if
Okay.
that's allowed to
Okay,
happen.
yeah.
because I don't.
Sorry to throw a wrench in.
That- I believe it is. Yes, Tina, I believe you're fine to continue. Thank you.
But we don't need a motion.
I motion that Tina run the meeting for Brian.
I second it.
You're on.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So that is our first action item. The next one is to approve the January meeting minutes. Did everybody have a chance to read them? Are there any corrections? Hearing none, then I need a motion.
Wait, may I?
I make a motion to.
Well-
Oh,
approve.
there is a
Fine.
correction?
I was absent that day and I wasn't sure what the procedure was, so I let Jacqueline know that I was absent because I was on the phone with US Airways
Correct.
when all that was going on. So I'm not sure if I can
I
move to the excused aisle, the excused column.
Do you know if we're allowed to go back and excuse absences after the fact?
I would have to check onto that. Because I found out after the meeting, I will
Yes.
find out if it's okay to be excused after the fact, but let me follow up on that and we can make the change if necessary.
Thank you.
And so what we'll do is follow up with you between now and the next meeting.
Sounds great.
And then we'll bring it to a vote next meeting if
Okay.
that's possible.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we're gonna table the January meeting minutes. And we are on action item C, begin the parks naming procedure for 20th Ball Fields property, and that is Sarah.
Thank you, Tina. So as you may remember, and as you may have read in the meeting minutes, at the last meeting, we went ahead and updated our naming policy as a parks board. By doing that, it did have to advance over to city council for them to fully adopt that new naming policy at the city level. In that last meeting, we had proceeded immediately with making a motion to begin the naming procedure. However, because that new naming policy wasn't in full effect, we just have to do it one more time again in this meeting in order to make it in effect based on the new naming policy. And that's where we as a parks board are asking to proceed with the naming policy at our level instead of bringing this matter to a full council vote as previously we had to do. So as a reminder, we have a parcel that is called 20th Street Ball Fields. And this location is almost fully engineered at this point and will be proceeding with construction this summer and is expected to be completed by the end of summer. With this, it'll have two different trailheads, the trail in between and the dog park area about halfway down the trail. And so with this, we need to have an official name for the park. And so our recommendation is to proceed with a motion to approve staff to begin the naming process for this location.
I make a motion.
Second.
Perfect.
All right,
Now, do we need to come up with some names, or we're still studying that?
So that is part of the process is we will open it up for nominated names, we'll solicit the public, and then we will bring those back to future meetings for the Sparks Board.
Okay, I'd like to make a suggestion with a search for that.
well, at
Okay.
do I open it up for debate?
Yeah, so right now we've entered into a discussion after a motion was made.
Mm,
We can discuss whether or not you want to proceed at this time with the vote. Otherwise, we want to close the vote one way or the other, and then we can have a general discussion on the matter.
Oh, the discussion does not come first.
This discussion would come before the motion if you want to have a general discussion. So once you open a motion to vote, we're in the middle of a process for voting
Oh,
that
so
in.
it's a motion to vote, not a motion to discuss it.
So we had a motion to vote, a second to vote.
To vote, okay.
You can discuss whether or not you want to vote, but if you guys want to discuss possible names and stuff, that would only happen after you've decided to proceed with the naming, of course.
Got it. I didn't catch that it was to vote. Okay.
Well, my thought is not a particular name at this point, but to talk to the youth coaches and things that are be using the field. I'm sure they've got a history of people that have done a lot of work, and that might be a place to find a name.
Got it.
So I'm going to call the question. Do we want to approve?
So there was a first and a second. So at this point, you open it up for a vote if there's no further discussion.
I'm lost on what we're voting on.
Okay, so there was a motion to approve staff to begin the naming process for the 20th Street Ball Field.
To approve staff to do it. Got it.
Correct, to begin the process officially.
Okay. All right.
I have one question before we vote on this. Is this naming, I mean, will we get a chance if we approve this motion now to put our names in that the Parks Board comes up with? Or is it's just out in the open now for anybody?
So at the last meeting, and it's attached here, this Parks Board approved a new naming policy. With your recommendation on this naming policy, it then advanced to City Council where they reviewed and also approved it. So this text is in full effect. This text states that it's a public process. We'll collect names from the public. I think it's a great idea, Carl, if you want to go to coaches and use it to solicit names from them. We officially, as a city staff, have to collect the names through the process that we're going to set up. We'll then have those names and deliver it to this Parks Board in the next meeting or subsequent meetings if it's not ready by the next one. This board then gets to review all of those names, and you get to recommend to City Council which one you would like, and then City Council is the final vote on that.
Okay, so basically, if we come up with any recommendations, it will be in the public process
Well,
where we submit our request, or is it?
During the public hearing? That's what I'm trying to
yeah,
figure
so
out.
if you haven't read the full text of this policy, definitely do. I believe that in the process, if we don't have a great name suggested from the public, that we can add other ones in. But it would be wise if you already have something in mind, or if you have something during that process, that you submit it formally, because then it'll come forward back to this board already in that list.
Okay, so formally, would that be like at the meeting that we hold for this park naming?
It doesn't really specify when the board gets to,
So the city staff will start that process, and we will decide how to collect names from the public. Likely, it's going to be a Microsoft form or other kind of survey to officially collect those responses. So we will be putting that information out. That would be the best time if you have a specific name to add it to the batch. But if then when we're sitting in the Parks Board meeting, you don't like any of them, we can have discussions to decide how to proceed with that.
Okay, but are we gonna have an open forum for the public to come in to look at the
Yes.
park and name it? Can they submit the names then?
We will not have a specific meeting for the purpose of naming the park. We will bring that topic to this Parks Board meeting and the public's always welcome to participate here.
Okay, because I thought that you said that they were gonna have a public,
Hearing,
meeting.
that there'll be a public hearing
Yeah.
where all the proposed names, so in the past, when we've had a public hearing, we have opened the meeting, did our first couple of business call, the roll call and minutes, closed the meeting, and then we opened it to the public, had a public meeting, and then we closed that meeting and then continued on with our meeting. So that's what we've done in the past.
Yeah, so reading the full text of this, the Parks Board will hold a public hearing where all proposed names will be presented. So the proposed names need to come from the public process that staff's going to set up through that survey. So those will be presented. The public hearing will also hold public comments where additional names can be brought forward. The Parks Board will adopt by a majority vote on a preferred name. Preferred name and a recommendation will be forwarded to the City Council.
But it says the park board will hold a public hearing. Will it be just like I said?
Yes, it will be in the middle, it will be on your agenda right here.
Yeah.
It won't hold a.
No, I'm not
Only a
saying that.
single
I'm
topic.
just saying, just like I described, that we would do that.
Yeah, it'll be right here on an agenda. item.
Yeah. Okay, There-
That answered my question because didn't know if this, public meeting, if people can still throw names in there or, or is it over? But she just said that they can throw names in at the end of the session. Okay.
So if we're on discussion, I should ask if there's more discussion, right? Or should I call for the vote?
If there's discussion about whether or not you're going to proceed with the vote, I think that's the appropriate
Okay,
conversation because we have an open motion right
Got
now.
it.
We
Okay.
go back into a general discussion at this point about the policy.
okay. So is there any discussion about whether we want to vote now or not? Okay, hearing none.
I don't think we should vote yet. There's too much to look at.
This is so the vote that we're talking about is to start the staff to start the process.
What page are you on?
I'm on the staff report.
Page 5
So-
on the
So
bottom.
let's be clear. If you vote no, I do not want to proceed with naming. Then we will not discuss this in a future meeting. The name will remain 20th Street Ball Fields. If you say, yes, I want to vote to have staff begin this process, then we will be able to discuss new names and possibly change the park name through the process.
So I'll call the question to, do we want staff to start the process of renaming 20th Ball Fields? All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, having heard all ayes, the motion passes.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Now we are on to discussion items and we're going to start with the upcoming board engagement workshop. And that is Sarah.
Hey, thank you, Tina. So I want to bring forward a specific workshop that is an abnormal meeting. It wouldn't be a normal board meeting with a full agenda. This would be a workshop that only has one topic, and that is called a board engagement workshop. And what I would like to do in that meeting is go over a slew of things about being on the Parks Board. So there we can dive into the Roberts rules. We can really dive into the keywords of voting and procedures. We can go over expectations and expectations that this group has being on the Parks Board. Go through those survey results from that board survey that everybody was asked to take. And really go over kind of behind the scenes for the Parks Board. In doing that, we'll need to choose a date for this engagement workshop. There's a couple of ways that we can do that, and that's what I wanted to talk to this group about. Do you want to set it up automatically for the second Monday of next month, which would be April? Or do you want us to send out a survey tomorrow? And that would allow everybody to check your calendars. You could fill out the online survey, hopefully within 2 or 3 days. And then that would allow us to choose a time that works best for everybody.
Dawn, Dawn, do you have a preference?
I will not be here the second Monday of April. I'll be out of town, so I would prefer that perhaps we can have another date would be great because I would like to participate.
Okay,
Yeah.
Carl?
I like the survey idea. I think it opens up more spots and more thoughts.
Do you want to have the date the second Monday of April, or do you want to wait and let us figure out a date when we all can come back?
I think another month would not hurt because we just said something about we want to look at.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many things going on. I think a little more time and word getting out there
Mm-hmm.
and
Roger?
I'm fine with the Monday, but I can delay it. I just need, because I'm gonna be out of town for like a week at the end of April. And I just don't know if you're gonna pick that day or whatever day, but yeah, it doesn't really matter unless you want to move it into the following month, but then that's a Parks Board and a regular meeting. But, and the other thing too is, where would the meeting be? Would it be here in the evening or would it be outside somewhere? Or I don't know. And how long would it last? Would it be like an hour meeting, a 2-hour meeting, or just depending on how long it goes?
I would say about an hour would be what we were aiming for. With the weather still being in the time of year, with it
Okay.
being a little iffy, I would say this meeting room would
Okay.
probably be the best. Although the public could come in and watch it, I would propose an in-person meeting so that we're all here, and that no public comments are taken during that, since it is a focused workshop.
Brian? Do you want to have, some time to look at the calendar?
Yes, I would prefer that. I
Okay.
think my kids have spring break sometime in that
Yeah.
week. Not sure. So, and since I'm driving, I can't look at my calendar, so I'd prefer that.
Right. Colton?
Yeah, I'm actually away from my calendar as well. So I would agree with Brian on that one.
So I'm gonna ask Sarah to send out a little survey so that we can come up with some dates.
Absolutely. Yeah, and what I will do is send you out the agenda that I'm looking at with the specific topics. It'll give everyone here a chance to just glance at it, and maybe if you have any specific other topics that you want to add, we can always add it to the agenda as well. Make sure everybody's questions get answered.
Okay,
Perfect, I will do that. Thank you.
and we'll move on to March Parks update.
Okay, great. We have a staff report here. There were several projects that we have completed. If you've been by Sunset Beach, you'll notice that the furniture, which is the tables and chairs, have now been installed under the shelters as well as on the pathway as you go down to the park. The North Cove Park Beach is experiencing some erosion. Some sand is washing into the lake at a substantial amount, starting to fill in some spots of the weir, which is creating work with us having to remove it, of course. Different agencies do not like sand migrating into the water or the weir. And so we've been looking at different mitigation ways to prevent that on the beach. So we started with some bags in order to contain it. We ended up putting rocks down there, but the rocks were being displaced by the public. And so at this point, we have ordered gabion baskets. Sounds like those are coming in. So that's the wire caging that you fill with rocks.
Oh, yeah.
And what we're going to do is seal the top with a bench top so that they're dual purpose and they act more as a bench. It is meant to be a temporary measure, but depending on the permitting agencies after it's done and how it looks upon completion. We'll decide if it can possibly be a permanent avenue. But around that, we'll have other mini projects around that where we're looking at drainage from coming from the lawn and how it's draining to make sure that it does go properly into the rain garden where the water should be filtered. So they've started to locate some of the underground piping because we didn't have proper maps with all of it, and we're checking to make sure that the grades are correct, that the lines are clear. Then we'll be looking at redoing the rain garden and some things to help with future drainage from the lawn, as well as mitigate any migrating sand.
How long do you anticipate that it's gonna take to get all of that done?
We have an action plan that is about 5 different items, plans of attacks in order to take small steps on
Right.
various items that we can do in-house. With that, the last of the items can't be done until midsummer.
Oh,
One of them was even discussed planting a few more water loving trees that would help soak up some of this water.
okay.
So we're going to be attempting to do these smaller fixes in-house and then analyze it. We didn't want to start with immediately hiring an engineer because we know that can start becoming substantially
Mhm.
expensive, and our small fixes with about 5 different approaches may help.
So midsummer is when we might. So will it
Yeah.
impact the ability to use the park?
No, this should not have impact for the public.
Okay.
No, if anything, it would be like one day where they plant a tree or they're digging up a pipe to realign it and replace it, but that should not be a multi-day project and shouldn't have any closures.
Okay.
Yeah. great
Anybody else
question.
have questions?
Have they ever thought about using the cement blocks or bricks, decorative, where you can build it up as high as you want and then be a perfect place for sitting because it's totally flat?
Are you talking about in the
Land-
beach area?
Yeah, like a landscape blocks that, because I mean, you're talking about putting rocks there. Well, the cement thing would be just as good as a rock.
Well, it's just to help disperse the water is what it's meant for, not to stop the water.
Oh,
But it is something, if you have a product in mind and want to send it to us, we can certainly look at it.
well, I thought you wanted to stop the water.
The water has to go somewhere. It is designed to drain into our perf pipes and out into the rain garden, but we're finding that that is not happening. And so we have to get the surface water to properly be disposed of in a rain garden. We're not allowed to just shoot a pipe straight out into the lake, for instance. So we do have to work with different permitting agencies for their compliance.
So the
or that's
garden you're
compliant.
talking about right now is off to the left when you're standing down there, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Question on the location, is it going to be, are these rock baskets with benches going to be at the edge of the great lawn? Or will they be right against the concrete pathway in the sand area?
Correct. They will be placed in the sand area right against the concrete. And again, they're meant to be temporary, but depending on how they look, function, and if we're able to get approval from the other agencies, they may become permanent seating
Okay.
for that area.
Okay, great.
So
Thank you.
the answer is we don't know yet. We have some more homework to do.
Yes, but we are required to take action.
Yeah, we have to
now.
take action.
Mhm.
We have to do something,
Yeah,
but what the end result is, we don't know yet.
correct.
Okay.
Will it intersect or work with the rise and fall of the lake through summer and winter?
Carl, I'm having a really hard time hearing you.
Will you point your microphone up?
Is there going to be uh, something that affects or works with the rise and fall of the lake through summer and then into winter?
If you're talking about
Because
the
it comes up a couple of feet and then it goes out.
Yeah, so again, what we're doing right now with the gabion baskets are temporary in order to stop the sand mitigation now,
Okay,
to stop that from flowing in the lake. Separately, we're taking about 5 different pronged approach, clearing drains, looking at the drainage, planting trees, redoing the rain garden, all of those different items we're going to complete by summer. And then in the rainy season next year, we'll have to closely monitor and see if it has fixed the water runoff and that sand migration, or if we need to hire somebody and have a true engineer step in order to fix the issue.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
so we're taking the route that is affordable and within our staff capability.
Don, did you have any questions?
No, that was my question, is where it was gonna be located.
And Colton, did you have any questions?
No, no questions. Thank you.
Awesome. So going down the list, the Frontier Heights Park sign was replaced. Believe it was removed over a year and a half ago from wind damage. We have the team recreated brackets and reinstalled the entire sign. We don't anticipate that it'll be damaged by the wind again, so that is in and looks great. Additionally, the interior of the restrooms at Davies Beach and Lundin have been repainted. So we gave those a facelift. That has been completed at this time. Moving on to events, recreation, and culture. The city did open solicitation for a new concession proposal at Lundin Park. The concession that has ran there the last 2 years gave notice that they weren't going to continue.
Oh,
So we did take a look at the proposals that came in, and we have selected a proposal. It'll be called Float and Chill. They're local residents who are starting a business here in Lake Stevens, and they will offer paddleboard rentals and refreshments. Sounds like they're looking at simple snacks, and then in the future, possibly expanding into other types of rental items out of the location as well. They're anticipating opening at Lundin Park in May. So we're in the middle of contracting with them at the moment. And then we gave a list of all of the upcoming events. We have Earth Day cleanup, which will be a volunteer day at Eagle Ridge Park, April 21st. And then we wanted to give you placeholders on future dates. We've got Gaming by the Lake. That is a new event on May 4th. Our tagline this year will be May the 4th be with you. It is meant to be a gaming event, kind of a Comic-Con spin with some different elements pulled in. So that'll be happening here at North Cove. We've got National Night Out, August 6th. Movies in the Park, we have 2 separate nights, August 9th and August 23rd. We are in the process of choosing those movies at this time. The Theater in the Park will occur on August 11th. We have another new event called Going a Viking. This is September 7th. It's meant to be a back to school type of event and Viking Pride that will be held in order to invite the entire community, and we'll really be getting the schools involved with that as well. It's also meant to have Viking themed events, including axe throwing.
oh, fun.
And so will be a lot of good stuff going on there. Harvest Fest this year will be on October 31st. After polling the public and having discussions internally, we will continue to hold this event on Halloween. The football parade now has a placeholder date. If they are successful in 3 years in a row going to state championships, this will be the date of the parade. We wanted to give that placeholder so it wasn't a surprise to the community, to the school, or to our staff. And then Winterfest has a slightly new date. It will be December 14th. This is effectively the second Saturday instead of the first Saturday. And that was meant to offset the date of the actual state championship so that if our schools do proceed to state, that the community can attend as well as the band and doesn't have a conflict there. So put those in your.
Anybody have any
calendar.
questions about that?
I have a question about the concession stands and all that.
Yeah.
What's the longest anyone's been there? Seems like every year, oh, we're getting a new this, we're getting a new that. Have we had anyone that's been there for a long time? Because if we haven't, then something must be wrong with to keep these people there.
As far as I know, I have seen 2 different vendors. You are correct. This last one, I believe, was either a 2 or 3 year stint, but I don't have history past that. I would have to look it up. One thing I am doing is working with Jill in creating the contract. We are going to make sure that we are getting full financials and reports from the concessions, including types of sales, quantities of sales. Because it'll allow us to analyze what is and isn't working. We don't have that history from the other groups. And so at this point, I can't pass on recommendations about how many rentals of what type, or if somebody tried to do kiteboarding, for instance, and it failed, which is a bad example since we don't have that happening on our lake. But that stuff we'll be able to gain in order to pivot and make sure that we do have success in the future.
Cause that's something that, you know, you want them to be there year and year and year after year. And, you know, if it's maybe, like you said, when you're looking at all this financial stuff, we'll see, maybe we're charging too much, or maybe we're charging too little, but we just gotta keep them there longer than, 1 year or 2 years.
Yeah. The other thing is the concession stand's very basic. You
Right.
have a sink and you have electricity. With that, it can be hard because you can't open a full kitchen. You're also limited that Lundine's packed during the summer. There's no additional parking and there's parking out on the street. So you really have a fixed client base. So that could have some potential challenges. There are things that are on our radar and that we've talked about internally, and we hope this next vendor is successful. I guess one other thought is it's seasonal, and seasonal businesses can be really hard
Right,
to.
and that's why I was thinking
employees.
maybe, get some kind of group or club, like a 4-H club to run it, or, a little league baseball or softball or football team to run it. Or just have them switch like every, once a month, each, another group comes in. And then that way it keeps it fresh and, like I said, it's seasonal work. Most people that have kids aren't gonna, I'm gonna open up the concession stand,
Is the city required to do an RFP?
Mostly, yeah.
Okay,
There'd be very few ways around that.
okay.
Yes. Yeah, so it would be a lot to manage if we were going to do an RFP for a week or a weekend and have those kind of open up as an application process. We would in the RFP be able to take a solicitation from the school district, for instance, where then they parcel that out. When we put out the RFP, we again didn't have a large return. But we did push this out far and wide. We went as far as contacting other concessions within an hour drive of us in order to see if they wanted to expand or knew anybody else as well. So we really tried to get the word out and make sure anybody who was interested could return that proposal.
Nice. Does anybody else have questions about the events? All right, can you proceed?
Yeah, staff news. We're going to be adding some stuff about our staff in these reports moving forward. So this year, Jill and Jacqueline attended procurement training in preparations for changes occurring this year. There's a lot of rules around money and how we can spend it and how we need to pay it. And so they've brushed up on all the rules there, which will be an asset to our department instead of relying solely on finance. Raymond attended continuing education for his electrical journeyman license. So he will continue to be a licensed electrician that we utilize within our department. Dawn and Tanya, during the last week of February, we sent them down to the Oregon Festival and Event Association Conference. This is their annual conference. This helped to develop their knowledge of the industry. Special events have a lot to learn. The reason we sent them to the Oregon conference instead of the Washington conference was it was really about the date and the location. The one that was happening in May would have collided with the May the 4th event, and it would have been over in Spokane. The distance between Spokane and Seaside, Oregon is about the same. So we thought it was the one opportunity to send them to the Oregon one and still gain all the necessary knowledge without delaying it by months. So that was the reason we decided to proceed there.
Is it the same company that runs all of them, like the Washington and the Oregon and?
They're an association, and so each state typically has their own association for each segment of industry. So they'd have one for public works, one for parks, one for special events.
Well, good to get a different perspective of besides Washington.
What it does is it also helps the reach, because there may be a plethora of vendors in the Northern Oregon area that are willing to travel up, and they do often go back and forth. Years ago, when I was learning the special event industry down in Oregon, they did one year send me up to Washington to get the reach as well.
Good.
Yeah,
Nice.
spreads their contacts so we can ask questions and share information as well. And then the reason Jill is not here today is she is off attending the National Parks and Recreation Association School of Revenue Development and Management. This.
Is that at a national park?
It's not at a national park. It's our association at the national level who puts on a few different trainings on different topics. So this is essentially the industry's best knowledge base for her to go and learn everything about revenue development.
Good.
So they'll talk about things like cost recovery with running a parks department, sponsorship programs, grants, all the different ways and ideas that we can help balance as we continue to grow as a department. The other thing our department did is every single staff has participated in the start of our strategic plan as a department. That started off with a vision and a mission statement. So we sat through a few meetings and brainstormed and really lined out what our vision and mission is going to be moving forward. And we have developed them and they're right here on the paper for your reading.
I really like them.
Great, thank you.
They're really comprehensive and fits exactly the vision that I have.
Yeah, so we kept them somewhat simple. So the
Mhm.
vision statement, enriching lives through diverse parks and recreation experiences.
Mhm,
So that's the way we're going. And the mission is kind of how are we going to do that?
mhm.
Lake Stevens Parks and Recreation enriches lives through our commitments to play, access, stewardship, and community.
Mhm.
And we elaborate on what that means for each of those. So the next part of this will be rolling into a strategic plan, which our department is undergoing with our 5-year plan currently. And we hope to have something to share. I believe our deadline is around July or August.
Good.
And then we've attached several photos on the back.
Yes. Thank you.
And then we had an official 2023 year-end report that we put out for city council and posted online as well. So this is just an overview of all of our successes, the work that was transferred over to the department, and then has some numbers and statistics, an overview of projects as well. And that is everything in my report, unless you have questions.
Any further questions? Comments? All right, thank you, Sarah. Okay, now it comes board reports time. I think I will start with Roger.
Okay. I know the last meeting we discussed about a plaque for Marlene at Eagle Ridge. Is that got any further attention?
I know that Jill was following up on how we do that and renaming that policy. I currently don't have an answer for that, but I know what she did. I believe she was just going to note it and then bring it back as we get closer to the actual development.
Okay.
Right now, we have just received the first draft of 30% plans. So we've got to meet as a department and look at that and then bring it to this group the next meeting. Just skirted at the end of last week. I've barely glanced at it.
And then my other thing I have is, remember that report that you wanted us to fill out that it was like your rules or understands the different levels of the park? And we all sent that in. We never got any feedback. Was it like good, bad, or what?
So I believe that there are 2 people that still need to take that survey. Are they all completed?
Oh, he's talking about, are you talking about the maintenance and
Yeah, the one that was
So-
like a month or 2 ago.
Are
the
you talking,
maintenance and procedure?
are you talking about the survey that asked you which of these parks you visited in the last year?
No, that was the one, this one was the one before that. And it was, you had like all the rules and regulations, and then you ask us to
Like
read it over and remember, it was real technical, like they had stuff about, tree roots and all that stuff and.
I don't remember that at
For
all.
each of the parks where we talked about level 4, this is what we do.
Yeah, that's.
Oh,
that-
our operations and maintenance stand.
Yes, that one.
Oh, yes. So, there was only a little bit of feedback that came on that. We implemented changes. This board had, gone through that process and then we had taken it to city council and it's been fully approved at this time.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a standard that has been distributed to all of our staff. And I believe it is now posted on the website, but I'll have to double check that that has been completed.
All right, Carl, you have anything?
Well, from the Park Foundation, we're getting closer to getting fish up. We've got some of them already made and still cleaning them up and working on them, and then we'll be etching them with whoever wanted, whatever they wanted on there. And then from the other side of the not splash park, I'm sorry, water feature. We gotta remember it's a water feature.
The Carl Johnson water feature.
No, it's not Mr. Bubbles.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have a tile. Roughly, I would say about that, 2 sets of tiles. They're gonna be, start at Pilchuck in the mountains, and then it has animals on it. It has a creek in it. It has birds and everything. It'll be on the inside of the water feature.
Okay.
So, and we're just, the foundation's funding that, and we're not assigning costs. We're selling the fish for the different sizes, but not the tile.
Well, that was the tile thing was always the original agenda, right?
Yeah, it's been on there a while.
Right.
And we've had several areas of not graffiti, I want to say, what's up at Frontier Village, we're looking at painting one of the walls
Mhm,
with a mural, I guess is the,
mhm.
and try to cut down on some of the other damage of the spray painting stuff. So that's about it. It's
Okay, thank you. Don, do you have anything?
Nothing at this time.
All right, Colton, do you have anything?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Brian?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. So I have a couple of things. One, I was voted back on the Arts and Park Foundation Board. So I'm very excited about that. And I noticed that in the end of your report, that it said that we put in at Frontier Heights, that we added park benches, plural, but I thought we only put in one bench. I thought we just put one bench in by the
Basketball. court.
basketball court.
I believe that there were 2 or 3 total that were
Oh.
added over the last 1 calendar year.
Oh.
I know there was a volunteer day with the HOA, and I
Mhm.
know that staff themselves also added another one.
Okay,
So I believe the count is either 2 or 3 total, but
Got
I
it.
would need to loop back around on that.
okay, but okay, so they do have more than one. And then my other question has to do with going back to the naming procedure. So it says that we would hold a public hearing, but there's something else that is a public hearing that has to do with parks, but we have to be in the audience. So when does the park board hold a public meeting? Because we used to hold all of them. And when does the city hold the public meeting? What's the difference?
So I think what you may be referencing as used to have a lot of public meetings was back when this was setting up as the actual planning board. And so used to the Parks and Recreation Planning Board went through a lot of the similar planning processes that the current Planning Commission does.
Mm-hmm.
And along the way, Jill could explain it better, but she's not here, are the structure of the board and the purpose of the board changed. And so the Parks and Recreation Planning Board right now could also be renamed to be called a Parks Advisory Board or a Parks and Recreation Board,
Mm-hmm.
City Board. So the name planning is a little bit of a mismatch of a fit, other than you are looking at the plans of the park, but you're also giving suggestions for policies and the future of the
Mhm.
parks, and not just planning and land use matters.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe used to this board would also review things like land use hearings within the parks, and that's not the case anymore.
Ah,
That is that planning commission who does that sort of thing. And so I think there was a divide and more of a split. So There's going to be several types of meetings. So one of them that just got sent out as an FYI, so everybody is aware, is that the City Parks Department has called a public meeting for the disc golf course. That's not meant to be an official Parks Board meeting, although everybody's welcome to attend. We are looking to engage in dialogue with the public to discuss that park. I've received a number of public comments and inquiries through email and phone calls over the past year and a half, and it's overdue that we have a meeting where we can talk about specifics for
And
that.
is-
So that's just an open-ended staff meeting that anybody and everybody can attend. We'll always try to forward those to the board so you know that you can attend. Now, there are going to be certain policies and certain things that we want to hold an official public hearing for within your packet and within these parks meetings. That would be any time that you want to address a specific matter that you're going to be voting on, where you want to hear specifically from the public whether they agree or not. So anybody on any day, just like at city council, you can come and you can talk during the guest business or the public comment period.
Mhm.
However, if you are going to be voting on a very specific matter, like voting on the final engineering plans
Mhm.
or a naming of a park, that's a big deal because it permanently alters the status of that park or location moving forward. And it's not something you're going to revisit once a month or once a year.
Mhm.
With that, this policy spells out that we have to have the public hearing for the naming.
That's
There may
okay.
be other times that we choose to, when it's more of that delicate permanent
Mhm.
change. That's when we allow a second round of comments from the public only on that specific matter before you vote, because it will allow you to collect any additional information to say, is there more that I need to look into based on the information I'm receiving today? Or do I have all of the information that I need in order to say yes or no?
So does that mean like the Catherine Creek has to do with planning? It's really what you're gathering data or information about what do you need to do next? Or what do you need to do?
No, what I'm doing with that is it's not part of a planning process, but it is a public meeting to discuss the park. And so we'll be talking about several different things, but it is aimed at disc golf. So one of the hot topics is the type of basket.
Right.
There are people divided on either side who have very specifically wrote me to say, keep the baskets, don't keep the baskets. With that, I can't give anybody a good answer on what I should or shouldn't do because we've never heard from the public other than the people commenting to me. So what I've done is I've dug up the history to say, well, how did the course get created? Well, it was done by volunteers. Who bought the original baskets? They were donated. Who installed them? Mostly the volunteers. And so when you start looking at stuff like that, yes, they were donated to the city and they're our asset. But it's not up to me what type of baskets occur. Certainly, we typically don't vote here if we should change the baskets. It should come from the public. And so what I'm looking to do is decipher things like volunteer days, rules. What do they want improved at that park? I'm really just soliciting
So
feedback in general.
Essentially, you're doing a staff inquiry.
We just call them public meetings.
Well, I know we call it public meetings, but that is the difference between a public meeting that we would have and a public meeting that you would hold is really, it's a staff inquiry, but you're doing it in a public, you don't need the park board to be in charge of it.
There's no vote occurring at the meeting. There's no action taking place at
Ah,
the meetings.
Okay,
I'm just looking for a dialogue to say,
okay,
hi,
so
nice
that's
to
the
meet you.
difference.
Tell
Okay.
me your real thoughts. And what happens is when I can do a meeting that will be hybrid, it'll be in person and online. Hopefully everybody that has interest will attend. There's going to be a slew of people that can't. I'm not going to make up any decisions at the meeting. I'm just receiving the
Yeah,
information.
yeah,
I'm going to be creating an official survey that I then say, if you attended today, you must take the survey.
mhm,
If you didn't attend, but you care, you must
Mhm.
take the survey. That'll give us results to start saying, should we leave everything alone or
Mhm.
should we look at improving certain things within the park? And if so, it'll give us a priority list as a department to say, here is the priorities that the public has for this location. Are we meeting their recreational needs or are we not? and then kind of create a work plan. And then where we don't have budget, we may have to work with the disc golf group to be like, hey, how can we fundraise? How can we make this stuff happen?
So basically, if it doesn't have a vote, we don't need to be in charge of it
It's
because we're advisory. And so,
it's really a maintenance thing. So any
Ah.
small improvements to the park are maintenance.
well, I'm
Should
just
I add
saying in
signs?
general, like how in general
To look at it.
does this work? So not necessarily Catherine Creek, but just like,
So things that should always come to the Parks Planning Board for a vote, and these are great topics that we'll go over in the board engagement workshop, because we're diving into what are your articles of incorporation? What are your bylaws? And that spells out, what do you vote on? What do you not vote on?
mhm,
What is the level of involvement of a parks board versus the department versus the city council? And that'll help map all of this out, which is
Okay.
one of the reasons I'm calling the meeting.
so hold my
Yeah.
question.
In a nutshell, I would say that anything that permanently alters or changes a park absolutely goes to Parks Board. So if I was going to say, let's put in a new disc golf course somewhere, let's double the size of the disc golf course, or let's remove it altogether, which I'm not proposing, let's be clear, but as examples, those are things that should come to the advisory board to say, should we do this?
Okay, all right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If we came to that advisory board, I mean, the meeting at disc golf, could we make our comments and do we have to identify ourselves as a park board member or not?
You're just another public
Another
member
person,
when you
okay.
come. It is absolutely okay to say, I am on the Parks Board. However, you wouldn't say I represent the Parks Board. Yep, so it's okay to identify yourself as a member. I think that it can give good information in case we all of a sudden get a slew of complaints about why the baskets aren't changed. You can be like, well, I was at the meeting and nobody wanted them changed. That will be stuff that I package up and send. This will be in person and hybrid, which gives us the opportunity to then record the meeting so that anybody that can't attend it during that time, they can still go back and watch the recorded version, and then they can still take that survey. We guarantee 2-week period for opening the survey. I try to do 14 days on surveys just in case somebody was out of town or out sick. They don't miss their opportunity.
And that's gonna be here. in this-
It'll be here.
And do we have to worry about quorum?
No, because let's say every Parks Board member did show up, which could constitute a quorum. Don't sit together and don't deliberate towards a decision that you might vote on in the future. So
Okay.
you can
Spread
say
out.
hi to each other, but just disperse and don't talk official business to
Got
protect
it.
yourselves.
Okay.
Like
Anybody else have questions
Yeah.
about that?
Participate in something.
And that's why in the meeting request, I specified that you guys would be guests of this meeting.
Right.
That you guys would be sitting out here, not up here,
Right.
to let you know, it's just a public, just for informational.
Mhm.
And that we're just FYI letting you know it's taking place
Right, right,
instead.
which
So
I appreciate, because then we know.
to distinguish.
Mhm, mhm.
I have a question. It's quite a busy spot, or it's well used. The disc golf course.
Oh, yeah, very popular.
Is there any thought of expanding it?
We haven't done a survey. It is not currently on our capital plan.
Okay.
In a perfect world, I would give more recreation in all user groups and categories.
Mhm.
What is important to me as a parks director is making sure that we have a well-rounded offering and that there's no user groups left out. So what I mean by that right now is we know we have a need for, we've talked about a pump track is on our short list, right? It's on our actual work plans. That is where if I had to choose where to spend money to not keep duplicating services we already have, just to spread it out. So if as a result of this, the community said, we want it to be double, it's important to us, I would say, well, I don't know if we can divert money, we can look at that. But in lieu of that, if they were to raise money as a disc golf course then and say, we want to double it, all we need is a yes from you. That's a great way to make things happen at government. In fact, that is the way that the disc golf course was originally installed.
Wasn't that school property still?
Correct. Yep, we're in a 25-year lease that we keep renewing.
So it'd probably be pretty hard to expand it because you'd have to take more trees down.
You can't expand it by just crunching more into a same footprint.
Right.
We do have the Centennial Woods property on the other side, which was identified for the pump track that didn't come up favorable when we looked at the actual reality of placing a pump track there.
But
That property does have constraints with the power lines and or utilities and stuff, and we haven't looked into whether that's possible or not.
there is a trail that leads into the houses to the, and
Mhm.
expands into the old gravel pit that were
Mhm.
left over.
Yeah.
So there is room for expansion, but whether environmentally it would pass the muster, I don't know.
Yeah.
Food for thought.
Absolutely. Great thoughts.
Anybody else?
Make a motion to observe?
Oh, no,
Oh,
I think we have a council member with us today.
oh,
And online.
Is he gone?
No, Marcus is still on.
Councilman Tangent, do you have? any
Yes.
thoughts Or anything
No,
that you? Or?
sorry, I couldn't get my button to turn on.
No, you're.
no, I
fine.
have-
That's fine.
Good discussion tonight.
Hey, thank you.
All right. So now I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Great. Thank you, everybody.